Hello, Ben Mize here again, and today is a news video, or this video today is a news video, and it's about global warming hysteria, where, 20 years ago, Al Gore came out with Inconvenient Truth, a movie about how carbon dioxide was increasing in the atmosphere, and this was causing the earth to heat up because it's a greenhouse gas. And because the earth's heating up, all these problems will happen, and it's this giant cause to save the world from carbon dioxide. And then that became climate change requires us to save the world from carbon dioxide. And just, quite briefly, what I've seen reported is that greater carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere cause plants to grow faster, because carbon dioxide, if you look up in just basic biology they teach in high school, or at least they used to, plants breathe carbon dioxide and take water and sunlight and generate sugars and cellulose, and it's how they produce their fuel that produces the crops, that produces the trees. And so having greater carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that as I recall was shown to cause plants to grow faster probably increases crop yields because it's making the plants grow faster. So, I'm a mechanical engineer by training, and there's so many issues with, first off, the ideas they put out about what the problem is, and second off, about the ideas about what the solution is. And in my mind, it's obvious that they're trying to bankrupt the American middle class and get them out of the way of the New World Order, and global warming is the excuse. And but so if in 100 years carbon dioxide has doubled, and let's say that caused the dreaded 1 to 2 degrees Celsius rise in temperature, or about 3 degrees Fahrenheit rise in temperature. So doubling the CO2 increased the temperature by 3 degrees Fahrenheit, and so it stands to reason if doubling it increased it 3 degrees Fahrenheit, then all of carbon dioxide accounts for 6 degrees Fahrenheit above the baseline temperature. Because if you had, let's say you had 200 parts per million, and that had you a certain temperature, and adding another 200 parts per million increased you 3 degrees. Well, if 200 parts per million increases you 3 degrees Fahrenheit, then 400 parts per million, roughly speaking, increases you 6 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not sure exactly what the parts per million was. Carbon dioxide is not a big gas in the atmosphere. It's a minor gas in the atmosphere. They measure it in parts per million. It takes several thousand air molecules before you find a carbon dioxide molecule. And so if carbon dioxide accounts for 6 degrees Fahrenheit above absolute zero, the coldest possible temperature, we're about, I forget exactly, but 500 or 600 degrees Fahrenheit above the coldest possible temperature, absolute zero. And if all of carbon dioxide accounts for 6 degrees in temperature, then it stands to reason that it looks like carbon dioxide accounts for 1% of our temperature. And you just don't solve problems throwing half your gross domestic product down the drain to modify 1% of the source of your problem. Of course, I think that it's not carbon dioxide and global warming causing the weather changes. I think it's more spiritual, and I think it's because of all the sin, I think it's because of the end times energies coming in for the change to the golden age, and that's causing the sun to change, and the earth is reacting to the fact that we're in the end times cleansing of the earth, that the sin will be dealt with before the golden age comes. And I think that has a lot more to do with the weather than, you know, a gas that is 1 part per every couple thousand molecules in the atmosphere. One of them is carbon dioxide. That just stinks to high heaven to me, because, you know, if it stands to reason carbon dioxide's 1% of the reason why we're at the temperature we're at, why can't I find any literature when I look about what role oxygen and nitrogen play in warming the earth, which are about, I don't know, it's like 98% of our atmosphere is oxygen and nitrogen. And I think what they said when I looked it up was it just has no effect. So they're this miracle materials of oxygen and nitrogen that are just invisible to infrared energy. You know, in school, everything had a black body constant that everything absorbed and re-emitted a certain amount of infrared radiation according to its temperature. And if, you know, oxygen and nitrogen just you know, have no coefficient to which they absorb and re-emit infrared energy, there must be some really interesting materials that you could use for some really interesting things if you thought about it, I guess. And to be, you know, the vast majority of the atmosphere, and it has no effect. Wow. And which you know, if carbon dioxide has all the effect and it accounts for 1% of our temperature, what's accounting for 99% of our temperature if it's not oxygen and nitrogen that are 98 or so percent of the atmosphere? There must be some potent gases in that little 2% right there. And if carbon dioxide is the biggest one and it only accounts for 1%, you know, where's the other 99% of our temperature coming from? And just to think about it with common sense is global warming. It's just it looks like it's the excuse to bankrupt the middle class, to get it out of the way of the New World Order. And it's one more piece of the, as I've heard, Cloward and Piven strategy to get America out of the way of the New World Order with 1,000 or 1,000,000 different cuts instead of just one big thing. But, you know, if we're going to assume that carbon dioxide is this monster that we have to get rid of so that we can lower the crop yields, or, you know, whatever they say, well, instead of bankrupting everything with all these crazy ideas I've heard about, like rebuilding all the buildings in America and building them back with more insulation, you know, instead of doing that, why don't you grow crabgrass in fields and mow it with, they make these little $200 robotic mowers, so you can mass produce robotic mowers to mow it and harvest the grass and burn the grass in the electrical power plants to make electrical power. Because if the plants die in the winter and decompose into carbon dioxide anyway, why not harvest the plant matter and burn it to make electrical power, and you'll still be part of the carbon cycle. You burn it in the power plants, the grass clippings burn and make carbon dioxide. Then in the summer, the carbon dioxide comes back around and is regrown into more grass. Because the grass is going to die in the winter anyway, and assumedly it'll all become carbon dioxide anyway, so why not power your economy off of it? And as I recall, I put everything in a spreadsheet, and if you had an insulated pressure box that you burned your grass clippings in with a high temperature fan attached to an alternator, and you did several things to be efficient, such as the hot gas coming off the high temperature fan to turn the alternator could boil a secondary fluid, and that could turn its own turbine to get even more energy out of it, etc., etc. You could probably hit 50% thermal efficiency of your generator, like you usually can if you do a good job with generators, and just have it outside everybody's house, their own personal, kind of like you have a lawnmower, you have a car, you have a truck, you could have a generator, because if you look it up, most of the cost of your power bill is because they're having to maintain all these power lines that trees fall on, and they have to cut the limbs down and hire crews to do that all the time. And if you just put the generator right outside your house, not only do you not have all these losses from all these, millions of miles of power lines that the electricity has to flow through, it's right there at your house. You don't have to pay for trees falling on the lines, etc. Plus, Americans would produce their own power, kind of like they drive their own cars, instead of having to have the permission of the power company to power their house, and thus the government. So it's a great boon to freedom to just have a little turbine generator on the side of your house, burns grass clippings, and it approximating the all this and the cost of having a mortgage on enough land to grow enough crabgrass to have enough cellulose to power everything at 50% efficiency. You could save money on your power bill at 70% profit margins, approximately, in my estimation, growing crabgrass and burning it right outside your house in a little pressure box and a turbine, well, high temperature fan, and you'd make enough power to make hydrogen with electrolysis through electricity and water to power your car, to power all the vehicles, to power all the trucks, and which you can burn hydrogen in a modified internal combustion engine like we have in the vehicles already. Because if the alternative is spending half your gross domestic product for 10 years, like I've heard has been said is the solution, $100 trillion in 10 years, why not just swap to a crabgrass burning economy? Because if you had a 250 by 1,000 mile plot of crabgrass, you could save money, it looks like, powering the whole economy and cars and everything and buildings and approximately, and save money doing it and be energy independent. Plus, if you took all the yard waste everybody produces and they just throw it on a pile to decompose into compost, and you put that through your insulated pressure box instead and burned it up to make power for your own house, you might not even need a 250 by 1,000 mile plot of crabgrass. You might need half that. I don't know. I'm not sure how you'd estimate that, but there's a lot of compost that goes and gets picked up by the city anyway. And you could be you could be burning your own compost to power your own house instead of having this big power bill. And use the carbon cycle instead of oil and coal, and not increase carbon dioxide if that's such a problem. or you could use board in front of wave technology, where you literally go to the seashore and you put a rail out to sea, and a flat board gets pulled out to sea on this rail with a belt with a pulley on it, and when it gets out to the end of the rail, it pops up in front of the waves, and the waves push it back into shore. And if you've ever gone to the beach, the waves pack a good little punch, and if you had a big old board that just popped up in front of the waves, and the waves pushed it into shore, and that pulled a pulley and pulled an alternator and made electricity, and you used electrolysis with water to make hydrogen to combine with carbon dioxide in the air with more electricity to make all these different oils and gasoline and diesel fuel, and you can do that, and you can pipe it to the rest of the country. That would be cheaper than spending half your gross domestic product. Is just have a board in front of a wave, and that makes the power to make water and carbon dioxide into fuel. But even beyond that, there's this whole field of study in the truther community, which you can find patents for at uspto.gov. And I'm going to show you a patent that Howard Johnson made in 1979 and explain it to you, for free energy, where you don't need fuel and you make energy. And Howard Johnson used curved and straight permanent magnets in this patent that was granted by the uspto.gov organization, the U.S. Patent Office organization. If you go to the uspto.gov public pair system, the patent was issued, meaning it was granted, meaning it had to be proven to be useful for at least one thing. And it violates the law that you can't create energy out of nothing, but I look at the patent and I say, well, maybe it looks sensible. Maybe, scientific laws are not made by God, they're consensuses of scientists, but it was a consensus that we couldn't have powered flight for a long time, and then we got better experience and realized, oh, well, we can. So that law was, no good. And so maybe there's ways to make energy out of nothing, or I'm not sure where this energy is coming from, but it's not having to burn fuel or use sunlight or wind or gerbils on a hamster wheel to get the energy. It's using curved and straight permanent magnets arranged in a certain fashion. And there was a video I used to be able to find where Howard Johnson, the inventor, was showing all these gauges. He opened his car's trunk and it had this big blue barrel in it where the engine should be, and he said he'd stuck his magnet motor in there. He hopped in the car and did donuts and drove off. And so if we don't have to bankrupt ourselves for global warming, and there's better ways to power ourselves without making all this extra dreaded carbon dioxide that's in the coal deposits and the oil deposits, and you can use the carbon cycle to do it, or whatever, maybe we don't need to spend $100 trillion in 10 years on the Green New Deal and get the middle class out of the way of the New World Order, in my opinion. But to this patent, it's so let's see, if we go to uspto.gov, here, I'll refresh it. It's still uspto.gov, and Howard Johnson made patent number 4,151,431 for a permanent magnet motor. And you can read this if you go to Google. It's got Google Patents, and you can pull it up easily that way. Google.com. Well, anyway, if you go to Google and you type in Google Patents and you type in that patent number, you can find it, but I'll do that later. Let me get to the patent. So this patent works off of curved and straight permanent magnets, where you have a layer of permanent magnets with the North Pole facing up and the South Pole facing down because they're attached to this layer, and you have a line of them, and then you have a curved magnet with north and south poles. And so magnets put out a magnetic flux, which is a field. That's what these little dotted lines are supposed to symbolize. And the field's trying to go from the North Pole to the South Pole, or approximately. And it may go from the south to the north, I forget, but it's trying to get from the north to the South Pole, or the south to the North Pole. And when you curve this magnet, then it concentrates the field around here because it gets these poles closer together, and it makes this path more diffuse because you got some here, some of the flux here, and some of the flux way out here. But this bending gets the flux denser on this side of the point, whereas the flux out here is even more weak because it's further from the north end. So the flux here is more concentrated, the flux here is more dilute. And so that causes this North Pole to repel this North Pole because the field's stronger from here to here. And the pole from here to here, that flux has to go all the way around, so it's more dilute. And so it has a weaker repulsion to this North Pole than this North Pole. So the net result is this pole is pushed forward by being pushed greater against these than it is against these, and it gives a net push in this direction. And the South Pole has the same type of field concentration, so that the South Pole is more attracted to this magnet than this magnet, and that because this field has to go up and all the way around to get to the North Pole. So out here it's a weaker field than right in here, because these poles are more in line with each other, closer to this, whereas this field has to go some of it goes like that, and then a little of it goes like that, whereas here a lot of it goes straight from there to there. So it's easier to put this magnet close to this line and have the concentrated field be here and this be a dilute field, so that this pole attracts that north magnet more than that north magnet, and that also gives a net force in this direction. And so let's see. So he had a system of, you had the permanent magnets on the layer on a wheel, and north was facing this way and south was facing this way, and you have the curved magnets up here, and they come into proximity of these magnets, and it causes that effect. And you have, however many you need, and it causes this wheel to spin, and you can attach that to an alternator and get power, and power your car or your building. And that's basically what his write-up in his patent said. And if you'll notice, so let's see, this was indeed for patent number 4,151,431. That's if you click the images for that patent number. And if you take this patent number and you go to the public pair system, and I'll have links to all this in show prep on my website, which is in the description. It says that that patent number was issued on that day in 1979, which means that the patent was granted, which according to uspto.gov documents says the patent has to have utility in law, which means it has to be proven to be useful for at least one thing. And I'm not sure exactly what the patent office said it was proven to be useful for, but the patent says it's useful as a motor made of permanent magnets that doesn't need electricity. And you can just, well, let me show you how to, let's see, Google Patents. So Google, type in Google Patents, enter, go to Google Patents, and take the patent number and find your patent. And this is useful because if you go to a good search engine like DuckDuckGo.com and type in whatever quotes patent number, you can find patent numbers to very interesting things. And so on Google Patents, at the external link on the patent webpage, you can go to uspto.gov, and it'll be uspto.gov, and it's the patent I was just showing you, just to show it actually is a U.S. patent. And so in a search engine, if you put something in quotes, it'll find that exact term. So you can type in maybe anti-gravity quote patent number in quote, and because patent numbers in quotes, it'll find the articles that specifically say patent number, in which case it'll often give you the patent number for whatever you're searching for, and you can take that to Google Patents, find the patent, go to the uspto.gov link, external link at the patent on Google Patents, and go to uspto.gov and see it actually is an official patent at an actual government website. And you can find all kinds of crazy technologies that you'd think people needed the death penalty for blocking from public access, like silver oxide cancer and AIDS cure patents, in my opinion, according to reading them, and patents that make artificial force fields that are propulsion fields, like gravity fields, so anti-gravity, as it's popularly termed. I recall reading a patent for a warp drive that used, I think it was artificial gravity to bend space-time in accordance with Einstein's theory of relativity for interstellar travel, where if you take this space and with gravity you warp space-time so that these two knuckles and the space in between gets warped so that the knuckles get close together, and you just hop from knuckle to knuckle, kind of bending the space ahead of you towards you so that you can just hop across, is kind of how it's supposed to work according to what I saw on the History Channel. I think it was the History Channel when I was a kid. You know, it was theoretical. If only we could do it. Well, they had patents from before that time that said they could do it, but it was still theoretical. Kind of like in Star Trek. They used they said they used warp drives in Star Trek, and they may have had actual warp drives at the time that they didn't tell us about. It looks like, according to stuff at the patent office. Well, um, so like Christ said, what good does it profit you? What does it profit a person or a man to gain the whole world and lose their immortal soul? And so if Mystery Babylon and the Illuminati are trying to steal the whole world, and part of that, in my opinion, is getting the American middle class out of the way of the New World Order, uh, such as by giving us global warming solutions that get rid of the middle class, because money's power, and and the system is trying to steal the whole world. It's not going to profit them in the end, because they'll lose their soul trying to defile the whole world. And like I tell some people I play board games with, Hillary Clinton right now is wishing she had as much fun as we were having playing board games with these friends I have. And that's something to meditate on. You do all this stuff according to the Clinton Cast documentary and other reports, and there's something called the Clinton body count to keep her ill-gotten goods from being reported on, and you do all this reported crime, and nobody likes you, nobody wants to be with you. And so you'd be better off just finding some friends to play bridge with in the end than stealing all those billions, and then, in my opinion, and then having to go to God and explain it all, because everybody's judged. The devil gets judged. He's not more powerful than Almighty God. That's why they call God Almighty God. He is Almighty. And but they thought they could steal some stuff in the here and now and have a nice time, and we get to decide if we want to fight the evil in our midst or let it run roughshod over us. And so we get to show God who we really are, so God can put us where we really need to go. But in Jesus' name, we beg God to cast out the black magic and the demons from our life, and to guide us into not being cowards. And to show us the way to restore the Republic and clear the corruption in the world, beat it back some more so we can have some breathing room. Maybe even do what we're supposed to do and try it for treason in a fair court. And then also, like the text is telling you at the bottom of the screen, I am hungry for money so I can expand and do even more. And I've got some decent supplements for a decent price in my ad affiliate links if we use my coupon code or promo code for a discount. And there's links to donations, links to my list of social media sites at truthingforjesus.weebly.org. And at the iHerb site, there's all kinds of supplements to buy from. If you use my link, it should give you a discount. If not, use the promo code, and then I'll get a cut. And when you come back, keep using that promo code. It'll keep giving you a discount and keep giving me some monies to expand with. Hoping to build a cryptocurrency mining farm and have the money to hire a crew to get on 300 social media sites and pray that old dear Mary doesn't get scared again and doesn't pray against my ministry, although God may let me disobey her from now on, I'm hoping. And pray God lets me disobey her to get on 300 social media sites. It needs to happen. So, God bless and take care.